We could be sitting in the computer lab, 4 a.m. before the final paper is due, cursing the world cause I didn't start sooner, and seeing the rest of the class there too.
Hello dears, and welcome to my show. I'm your friendly neighborhood librarian, reading the stinkers and praising the masterpieces since 2012. Double feature time. That's right, folks. For the everyday low price of free, you get 2 for the price of 1 today. Aren't you lucky? The Night of the Solstice and Heart of Valor by L.J. Smith. Yes, these books and I have an interesting history. What's that, you say? You've never heard of L.J. Smith? Well, I bet you've heard of Ian Somerhalder. That's right, L.J. Smith wrote the original Vampire Diaries books in the 90s. And oh, were they glorious. Gloriously ridiculous, gloriously cheesy, and reveling in its cheesiness and its ridiculousness. The Vampire Diaries was like a celebration of everything bizarre about young adult paranormal romance. It's almost like a parody of Twilight, before Twilight even came out. And that's awesome! The thing about the Vampire Diaries is that it wasn't targeted at my age group. It was targeted at the teenagers of the generation when I was still a kid. And yet, I couldn't help it. I devoured them. I first read the Vampire Diaries because I was preparing to watch the show. I needn't have bothered because they're 2 entirely different entities, but that's neither here nor there. L.J. Smith's cheese-tastic writing had me hook, line, and sinker, and I was yearning for more. So obviously, I went and devoured all her other books as well. I read the entirety of the Vampire Diaries series, for which she is most well known, the entirety of the Night World series, fairly popular as well, all of Forbidden Game and Dark Visions, which are less popular. We're getting more into the obscure, only hardcore fans and nuts would know. But there was another little blip on her radar. Her first books written for children. Yay! Books that weren't included on her official website and were really hard to come by on Amazon.com. Books we might like to call L.J. Smith's old shame. And those are the books that I dug up because I just had to read everything L.J. Smith. I was an L.J. Smith nut. And now I can share my findings with the world. These 2 books are really just one story divided into 2, which is why I'm reviewing them together. It's similar to the Narnia concept in that a group of siblings end up in an alternate dimension. Alice, Charles, Claudia, and Janie venture into the wild world when a magical fox belonging to a sorceress lures them into the other plane. The siblings must save both worlds from evil sorcerers bent on universal domination.
Of course!
That's where our story begins. Yes, do you know what a cast made of preteen siblings means? No awkward romance plot. So refreshing. So refreshing. I've been reading too many young adult books. See, that right there is the best part of reading books that are targeted at ages, Oh, 8 to 12. Even our kids' movies seem to be fixated on the go find your Prince Charming or your Geek Charming or just find a man so that you can fulfill yourself. Gotta get those priorities in order early, kids. And I think that's why, even as a kid, I preferred books over movies or television. Because books are free from the idea that in order to tell a good story, you must include romance. And since romance inundates every single other aspect of our society, it's really, really amazing that for once we're free of it. Adult fiction kind of always reminds me of that one friend you have whose Facebook statuses are all about her boyfriend. So all you want to do is hide her Facebook statuses But you can't because you value your friendship too much. And nowadays, whenever you hang out, you have to hang out with both of them. And if by some miracle you get to hang out with her and he's not around, all she can talk about is him. She'll spout out the cute little story of how they met to anybody who wants to listen, and all you want to shout at her is, "Nobody cares!" That is what we willingly subject ourselves to every time we read young adult fiction. Why? I don't know. Humans are weird. And I'm not bitter because I don't have a boyfriend or anything. What makes you think I'm single? Please date me. I have plenty of friends. I'll introduce you.
F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. N is for anywhere and anytime at all.
As you can see, the library is full to the brim with my friends. What? No, not the people. Over here. Yeah, let me introduce you. See how many friends I have? Bet you're jealous now. Bet you wish you had this many friends.
Now, do it like this. F is
Downside to children's literature like this, it is very, well, juvenile. From the way things were worded, you can tell that Night of the Solstice and Heart of Valor were written for children. But it also kind of sounds like it was written by a child as well. I'm not sure how old L.J. Smith was when she wrote this, but her writing is reminiscent of a teenager's or a high schooler's, which, unless you're S.E. Hinton, is not exactly genius level. It does make for sincerity and a lot of heart, though. These kids are really realistic and their relationship rings true. The kids' development, too, was something that really impressed me. These kids have distinct flaws and they learn from them as the adventure goes on, and then they acquire more flaws based on their experiences and learn from those, and they just keep on growing. That is something that is really rare to see in any book. Characters actually acting like humans instead of having a linear character path. The truth about human development is that sometimes we go 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
1 step forward, making 2 steps back.
The phrase, "truth can be stranger than fiction," comes to mind. And I read somewhere that the difference between truth and fiction is that fiction has to make sense. When characters actually act like humans, it's unsettling, because we're used to using a specific formula, but real human development is painful and individual. We don't like to see messy loose ends in our fiction, but L.J. Smith isn't afraid to write human characters. So the Night of the Solstice is kind of an introduction to the character and the mythology, and then Heart of Valor is sort of the characters and the mythology being put into action. It really could have been 1 book, admittedly a rather lengthy book, but it could have been 1 book. The story is written kind of like a children's storybook. Near the beginning, the narrator remarks that the kids don't have much interest in hanging out with each other or playing together because there's too much difference in their ages and interests. By the end of Heart of Valor, though, the 4 kids are a team. The awesome development of the kids does not prevent them from being archetypes, though. First of all, we've got Alice. Harry Potter fans, Alice is Percy Weasley. Magic Treehouse fans, Alice is Jack. Disney's Lilo and Stitch fans, Alice is Nani. Disney's Peter Pan 2 Return to Neverland fans, like there are any of those, but if there were, Alice is Jane. She's practical, responsible, and an older sibling. She's also very, very athletic. Charles and Janie are the second eldest. They're twins. Janie is Nora from The Report Card by Andrew Clements, or Matilda. She's got the child genius going on, but that also makes her cold and detached. Also, she has purple eyes. Why? Because she's super special, I guess.
Super special, awesome, ultra special, super sexy transformation sequence in 3D! We're back, baby.
That detail always kind of baffled me. Unusual eye colors usually indicate a Mary Sue, but if Janie's a Mary Sue, then so are the rest of the kids. They're all kind of chosen ones.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a Jesus, Harry.
It was an interesting choice by L.J. Smith, but I don't really think it meant anything in the long run. And Charles is like the opposite of Janie. He's like a Jack Sparrow character. Only sane. He basically just thinks life's a joke. And then there's little Claudia, the baby in the heart of the family. The older siblings are sometimes annoyed with her naivety, but most of the time they just think she's so cute. And she's the one who does believe in magic. She does believe. She's Beverly Cleary's Ramona. She's Beth from Little Women. She's also Setsuko from Grave of the Fireflies. Okay, sorry guys, those were bad examples. It's just that many of the fictional little sisters that I can think of end up yeah. Authors are sick. You guys know that? You're sick. Seriously though, this is a really happy book series. I mean, it does get a little bit dark, but it never goes all out. And it doesn't seem like it's babying us by doing that. It just seems like L.J. Smith's writing style, which is fine. So I'm going to admit something on camera and post it on the internet for all to see. Some may call for the revoking of my library card. Some may even call for the revoking of my geek card, but I have to say it. I don't like Lord of the Rings. In fact, I despise The Lord of the Rings. It is so incredibly dull and plodding and boring and pretentious and preachy. I could go on and on about why I don't like The Lord of the Rings.
Rid the village of this beast! Who's with me? Mount your horse! Screw your courage to the sticking...
The Night of the Solstice and Heart of Valor tried to mimic Tolkien's high fantasy style, but for kids. I enjoyed it much more just because it wasn't so slow-moving and dull, but the story still didn't really interest me nearly as much as the characters did. Okay, and when I said there was no romance in these books, I lied. Charles does end up getting somewhat of a love interest in Elwyn, who is a mystical being who is very powerful and very petulant. Terrible combination, by the by. But the relationship is such a small part of the story and so offbeat and lacking in all mushiness, and written so differently from other romances that it's okay. The descriptions of everything in the wild world are really unique and capture the otherness of this other world. Generally, the way it's written is really different than anything else I've ever seen, but it works. The characters play well off each other and have tremendous chemistry. The plot really is the weak link in all of L.J. Smith's work. They come across like a 5-year-old just spouting out everything that comes to mind, all these different, sometimes disjointed ideas joined into one story. And it's endearing. Really, these books do show an author's inexperience. They're wacky, they're nonsensical, they're meandering, and I just can't seem to quit them. So, would I recommend The Night of the Solstice and Heart of Valor? Well, first of all, don't read one and not the other. Neither of the books can stand alone. Even though I wouldn't say the first ends on a cliffhanger exactly, you haven't received the full payoff of the character's development, both individually and as a group, and it will leave you underwhelmed, to say the very least. This story only works as a complete set. Now, you've got to understand that these books are strange. strangely written, with a strange plot, with strange characters, in a strange world. I'm fairly certain that L.J. Smith's writing is genuinely bad, but I can't seem to get enough of it. Perhaps I'm certifiably insane. Then again, maybe there's something to this style of writing. There's definitely sincerity behind it, and creativity, and so many ideas spilling out at once. That's L.J. Smith's main flaw, not knowing when to rein in the ideas. The fact that this is aimed at a younger demographic than her usual fare only exacerbates the weaknesses in her writing. At times, the story does get very elementary, very juvenile. And honestly, without a love for the high fantasy element the author was so clearly trying to pay homage to, you may find yourself bored at stretches. What I'm trying to say is that this is a very eccentric book with lots and lots of flaws. While I quite enjoyed the ride, I can't say I'd recommend it to general audiences. You have to be a certain type of reader, and you've got to be in a certain mood to read these. A mood where you almost believe in magic, or at least you want to. A mood where you're willing to wave away some flaws in favor of the big picture. I'd almost say that you have to revert to a childlike state temporarily in order to get the full experience. Because this is every bit a child's story, from a child's point of view. At my age, I'd call it a guilty pleasure. So, this double feature gets 3 out of 5 stars from me. Next up is another double feature. Bet you can't guess what it is. Okay, here's a hint. I feel very protective of you. I watch you sleep at night. I'm not afraid of you. I'm only afraid of losing you. How long have you been 17? A while. I bet you're all stumped. Well, till next time, I'm your friendly neighborhood librarian, signing off.
Sheep and wolfish clothes, holy jaws are dropping up in heaven's hold. Plant my hooves, my hooks, my books. Once upon a time, heaven was a tower, tethered in its pride. It cast us grapes of sour, thoughts the ink was dried. Where hellish gardens flowered, ivy to be climbed. Spread my filth, my wings, my weeds, my weeds. My fairest wheels are turning.